Tonight on JoyNews Prime, ahead of Thursday's judgment by the Electoral Commission, by the Supreme Court on the 2020 election petition filed by the presidential candidate of the NDC, the Supreme Court is cautioning the public against the hurling of insults at the justices involved. We'll also bring you a recap of the hearings. The opposition National Democratic Congress has meanwhile written to the Electoral Commission to demand a refund of the filing fees of its presidential candidate and some of its parliamentary candidates in the 2020 election.
If the parliamentary candidate gets more than 12.5% of the value, the law says he or she should apply for a refund of the deposit. The MPP have done it. All political parties who qualify for refunds have applied for.
We will get a reaction from the EC. Auditor General Daniel Domlevo reports to work after more than 6 months of a leave ordered by President Akufo-Addo. The President has been urged to seek an amicable resolution of the current impasse between the Auditor General and the Board of the Audit Service. In business, Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia likely to present the 2021 budget to Parliament next week, Friday, as Finance Minister-designate Ken Ofori-Atta is still on medical leave. And the presidency has been explaining gunshots heard from within Jubilee House Wednesday morning were fired by soldiers rehearsing for this year's Independence Parade, which will be held there due to COVID-19 restrictions. My name is Israel Lai. JoyNews Prime is coming to you live from our Final Four studios at Kokomlemle here in Accra, on your digital terrestrial TV, because we're free to air, and also on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. This is a home of independent, fearless, credible and impactful journalism. Do stay tuned in. After 2 months of argument, sometimes fierce and other times light-hearted, the Supreme Court is set to give its judgment in less than 12 hours. Tonight, we bring you a recap of the 2020 election petition.
On the basis of the foregoing election results, and by the power vested in me as the chairperson of the Electoral Commission of Ghana and the returning officer of the presidential election, it is my duty and honor to declare Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo as President-elect of the Republic of Ghana.
9 December 2020. Electoral Commission Chairperson Jean Mensah officially declaring President Akufo-Addo as having been validly elected as President. This was immediately met with protests by the NDC, who challenged the EC's figures, insisting the results were flawed. NDC presidential candidate John Mahama, along with other party leaders, argued the EC's correction of its own figures buttressed their point.
The sacred verdict of the people must be respected. It must be protected. It has been my pledge throughout my time of service as a representative to the good people of Ghana to do exactly that. And that is why I stand before you tonight, unwilling to accept the fictionalized results of a flawed election.
On December 30, after several street protests, John Mahama filed a petition at the Supreme Court seeking an annulment of the 2020 election results and an order of the court directed at the EC to conduct another election between himself and President Akufo-Addo. But documents it submitted to the court were riddled with errors. On January 14, 2021, the court sat for the first time to hear the petition and granted unanimously the request to amend the documents. The Supreme Court subsequently, however, dismissed a request for interrogatories to be served on the Electoral Commission. John Mahama was seeking to get the EC chairperson to answer 12 questions, which, in his opinion, would have aided the speedy resolution of the trial.
In the case of the interrogatories, if leave were granted and those answers were available, we would expect that the answers to those interrogatories would be available to put in evidence, which will then limit the scope of controversy.
Then came the time to call witnesses. Although John Mahama stated in his petition that he was calling 5, his lawyers called only 3 witnesses to the dock: John Singisi Edunketia, Dr. Michael Pesa-White, and later Rojo Metal Nunu.
My Lord, you claim my agents did not sign, which means that it's part of our case that the figures are in contention. But in the presidential elections, regions are not won.
I can say and maintain that it is on the basis of her instruction that we exited the place.
And even whilst there, you were offered tea and biscuits, not so?
I was offered tea. I wasn't offered any biscuits.
The court also rejected an attempt by lawyers for John Mahama to inspect some 6 original documents at the Electoral Commission.
In the instant case, the applicant has not raised any issue that he has no copies of the documents of the subject of this application. Of the fact that the proceedings so far shows the petitioner has copies of all the documents, the subject of this application. We are of the opinion that no proper case has been made before us to warrant the exercise of our discretion in favor of the applicant.
When lawyers for the petitioner closed their case, it was expected that the EC and President Akufo-Addo would open their cases and call their witnesses. But to the surprise of many, including the justices, the respondents opted not to call any witnesses.
We do not intend to call any witness. And my Lord, let me complete.
Order.
We do not intend to call any witness because in our view, they have not satisfied the burden of proof.
Lawyers for John Mahama proceeded to make a case to the court to compel Jean Mensah to testify. But the court rejected their plea, saying it cannot compel the EC chairperson to testify against her will. This ruling was appealed, but the court unanimously rejected the review application, insisting it had no powers to force witnesses to testify. The petitioner subsequently applied to the court to reopen his case and issue a subpoena to the EC chairperson to testify as a hostile witness. But that also failed. Subsequently, a review application against this ruling was filed in court, only to be dismissed by an enhanced 9-member panel. Of course, one cannot forget when the spokesperson for the petitioner's legal team, Dr. Dominic Ayine, was hauled before the court for making comments suggesting the panel had predetermined the case.
Lord Chief Justice, I did say those words. My attention was drawn to the fact that I might have crossed the line by Mr. Frank Davis. And Your Lordship, on the advice and consultation with my counsel, I have written to the court rendering an unqualified apology. I delivered that letter this morning to the Registrar of the Supreme Court to bring it to Your Lordship's attention.
All the parties in this litigation have filed their written closing addresses, and the court will render its judgment on the petition on Thursday, March 4. It's left to be seen if the 7-member panel of the court will affirm the victory of President Akufo-Addo or will order a rerun, as hoped for by John Mahama.
As Aqua indicated in the complex case, heeding the promptings of conscience, as he put it, heeding fidelity to the judicial oath, he found it appropriate to reverse a decision of the ordinary bench. May each of your lordships decide in accordance with your conscience and your judicial oath. Ultimately, and even more profoundly, it is for the chairperson of the first respondent to come forward to testify as she indicated an oath she would do. I conclude with prophetic words that were spoken centuries ago. For they sow the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. These are the words of the prophet Hosea, to be found in Hosea chapter 8, verse 7. He that has an ear, let him hear.
Well, at a news conference Wednesday, Supreme Court Judge JoyNews teamed up with the Ghana Journalists Association to address reportage of the judgment. This comes barely 24 hours after the GJA demanded the retraction of a directive by a lawyer for the justices of the Apex Court demanding the deletion of some stories from online news portals and also cautioning all media houses in the country to desist from publishing hateful, indecent and offensive statements against judges. The GJA described it as an attempt to dictate to the media. Justice JoyNews at the news conference expressed his colleagues' disquiet about what he says are attacks in a section of the media on some of the rulings and asked the public to be circumspect in their comment about the judiciary.
God willing, tomorrow the court will speak. When judges speak, that's the end of our role. It's not our place to get into studios, into debates, into commentaries, and to explain. That responsibility falls to you as the anchors who take information out. So if you inform, you can also misinform. It's the responsibility of those of you as the media who educate. If you educate, you can miseducate. And that is why, you know, if country will do well, if we will go forward, if our cohesion will be maintained, a lot depends on you and the professional circumspection, introspection and reflection and care that you bring to bear on your role as the anchor that takes the information out. I couldn't say it better than George did. You will have to take this phase of the responsibility very seriously. It's as important as the role you have performed in transmitting the proceedings worldwide, because at the end of the day, the Ghanaian people own the process. And it's important that they understand what went on, and that when the judges speak, irrespective of our preferences, our likes and dislikes, by the rules of engagement, the referee blows the whistle and the lots fall where they fall. And so let's be constructive, let's be proactive. And His Lordship has said, I should tell you that as trustees of the People's Power of Justice, we are willing and happy to be criticized. Criticize us as violently as you can, but for Christ's sake, don't insult us.
President of the Ghana Bar Association, Tony Forsing, says lawyers are on standby to offer legal education on matters likely to come out of Thursday's judgment.
On behalf of all the lawyers, to render an unqualified apology, if there be one needed, to all the authorities involved in the discipline of lawyers. Indeed, after the elections and throughout the petition, tempers were very high. And as much as I believe that every lawyer is endued with the ethics of the profession, sometimes some considerations would make you slip here and there. As human beings, even in court sometimes, we even forget some of the issues and we ask for amendments. So I pray that whoever may have said something untoward towards any person as a lawyer, I render an unqualified apology. Going forward, I will ask that all lawyers, after hearing the judgment tomorrow, will lend their intellectual power to the media and to the general public and show leadership in explaining what people do not understand. That is what we have been trained to do. Definitely, I will not ask anybody to go one way or the other. Every lawyer is an independent thinking person and has his own considerations. But in as much as possible, let us all be guided by the ethics of the profession, such that at the end of the day, Ghana is the better for it, so that we may not have the opportunity or the infamy of having to explain ourselves to anybody for things that we have said or failed to say.
President of the Ghana Journalists Association, Roland Afilmoni, also told journalists to commit themselves to high standards to ensure national cohesion.
We know that the ownership structure of the Ghanaian media prevents some of you from being as professional as you ought to be or what you want to be. So there's nothing we can do given the pluralistic nature of the media. All sides of issues are peddled. But for the sake of heaven, for the sake of national unity and cohesion and stability, our appeal to the media community in general, please inject the highest degree of circumspection in tomorrow's judgment, so that at the end of it all, Ghana will continue to be at peace with itself and at peace with the rest of the world. On this note, once again, I thank you for what you have done, and may the God of heaven bless you all.
You're watching JoyNews Prime. We're crossing over now to Parliament, where the House is considering the report of the Appointments Committee that took through vetting President Akufo-Addo's ministerial nominees. Kwesi Parker-Wilson, our parliamentary correspondent, joins us right now. Well, he tells us there's some action on the floor. Parker, you tell us what's happening in Parliament now.
Honourable members,
I am present. Now, this is because after Parliament resumed sitting from their break, there was misunderstanding between the two sides as to whether they should debate on the report by the Appointments Committee or defer the report to tomorrow. The argument advanced by the minority was that most of their members did not take delivery of the report on time because the printing firm here in Parliament had broken down. I mean, the machines had broken down, and that they delayed in submitting the reports to them. So most of them have not had the opportunity to thoroughly examine the 144-page document. And that is why they want the Speaker to defer the debate to tomorrow, just to give the MPs enough time to peruse the document and then come and debate that tomorrow. On the side of the majority, said no. Since most of the members of the House received copies of the report, it is only fair that they go ahead and debate it. Besides, they need government or the executive to be efficient. So when they approve your nominees, they go to their various ministries and they execute their mandates as the president has tasked them to do. So by delaying would mean delaying government business. The argument went on and on for a while. Then the Speaker said that, well, he's been put in a difficult situation, and so they will do the voice vote. So he asked the question that whether they are in favor of the debate or not. The ayes and the noes are almost were equal in terms of the voice vote. Then he said that they will do head counting. So the majority MPs were asked to stand to be counted. But while the counting was going on, in the process, the Speaker received information from the table office that the MPs were not stationary. So you count an MP from this side, by the time you get to the other side, he had crossed over to the other point. And so counting became a bit difficult for the table office and the clerk. Then the Speaker then suggested, well, they're going to do the roll call. So every MP should resume their seat. When your name is mentioned, you stand, you say, I am present or present, then you are counted. So that is what is currently happening now. So you're going to count almost all the MPs in the House. And easy, Israel, you know the number of MPs we have, 275. They are almost about a little over 200 here. So we are going to go through that process until we are done. And when they are done, the outcome of this roll call will now determine whether they have to debate the report or defer the report to tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much, Kwesi Parker-Wilson, and we will be staying with that story. Immediately there's some resolution, we will bring that to you. But staying with the Electoral Commission, the opposition National Democratic Congress is demanding a refund of the filing fees of its presidential candidate in the 2020 election. A letter signed by General Secretary Johnson Esiedun Ketia and addressed to the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Jean Mensah, is also asking for the refund of the fees for some of the party's parliamentary candidates. He stated that the Functional Executive Committee decided to formally put in the request. He says it's backed by law. Sami Jemfi is the NDC's communications officer.
That has been the practice since 1992. The current public election regulations that we are operating under, CI 127, stipulates at Regulation 46.1 and 46.3 that every political party or every candidate has to make a certain deposit, upon filing to contest as member of parliament or president. Now, If the presidential candidates get more than 25% of the valid votes, the law says he should apply after the election for a refund. If the parliamentary candidate gets more than 12.5% of the valid votes, the law says he or she should apply for a refund of the deposit. The MPP has done it. All political parties who qualify for refunds have applied for refunds. It's been done over the years, and there is nothing untoward about it. What we have seen is that the EC, in response or in acting on this letter, actually prepared the document. And in that document, under the table provided there, they have stated presidential NDC percentage of things 47.396, and that document, which is coming from the EC, not the NDC, and which has actually been signed by Dr. Shribo Kweku, has been released on social media and is being circulated with the letter our General Secretary.
Right, and we reached out to the Electoral Commission, and indeed they have reverted with a text message which we'll share with you right now. So Dr. Bosman Asare, the Deputy Chairperson of the Electoral Commission, says the EC has received a letter from the NDC regarding the refunds of the filing fees for the presidential and parliamentary elections. The Commission has started the processing of the payment. Right, so that's the response from the Electoral Commission regarding the NDC's demand of refund of filing fees. You're watching JoyNews Prime. We're taking a break, but still ahead in the bulletin, Auditor General Daniel Domlovo reports to work after more than 6 months of a leave ordered by President Akufo-Addo. The President is meanwhile being urged to seek an amicable resolution of the current impasse between the Auditor General and the Board of the Auditors. Do stay tuned in. We're back in a bit.
Hello, good evening. It's time for business. I'm Charles Aite. The Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, is likely to present the 2021 budget for Parliament next Friday. The leader of the Majority Caucus in Parliament, Osechi Mensah-Bonsu, disclosed this to parliamentary correspondent Kwesi Parker-Wilson. Now, this follows the inability of the Finance Minister-designate, Ken Ofori-Atta, to return on time from his 2-week medical leave in the United States. Joy Business is learning that under the Public Financial Management Act, the budget is always presented on behalf of the President to Parliament. Therefore, the President at any point in time can designate another government official to do the presentation on his behalf, apart from the Finance Minister. We shall be following this closely to give you updates as and when. Meanwhile, economist Dr. Eric Osesibe is upbeat that the budget presentation, regardless of whoever reads it, will provide a roadmap on economic recovery post-COVID-19. He spoke with my colleague Darrell Kwao earlier on Business Live.
I'm also not too sure whether it has ever happened in this country where the finance minister will not be available to present the budget. But it is not against the Constitution, the 1992 Constitution, in any way, because if you look at the Article 179 of the Constitution, under the authorization of expenditure, it states clearly, and I read from the Constitution, that the President shall cause to be prepared and laid before Parliament at least 1 month before the end of the financial year estimates of revenue and expenditure of the government of Ghana for the following financial year. And so it's definitely not out of place. It's within the President's mandate to cause any of his lieutenants to present the budget on his behalf. And so whether the Finance Minister is available or not, the President can still go ahead to do that. And so it is very much consistent with the Constitution. As to who does that, whether it's going to be the Vice President or Trade Minister or the Agric Minister, I don't think it matters at all. I mean, once the President has mandated a person, one would have wished that the budget would be driven by the finance minister, because obviously it is his vision and the president's vision that will drive the economic governance of the country. But that said, it's definitely it's consistent with the constitution as to who the president asks to make a budget presentation. It doesn't have to be the minister. The constitution did not specifically say that it has to be the Minister of Finance. And so I think it's within the president's mandate to do that. Okay, and so what is most important, I guess, is the content of that budget, not who presents the budget. And Absolutely. So Absolutely. What would you want to hear on that day, seeing the year that has gone past us and the struggles we've had? Well, I think what I want to hear will be program clear strategy for recovery and for consolidation of the gains that have been made. So largely on the recovery, because as you know, growth has slowed considerably. We've had underperforming revenue and then expenditure going ahead of the target. Fiscal deficits are running over the statutory targets. And so largely it should be about measures to ensure recovery. We all know that the road to recovery can be long and also bumpy.
Remember to stay with Joy Business for all updates regarding the budget presentation next Friday. In the meantime, that's it for business. I'm Charles Aite.
All right, so we bring you Showbiz now, and Becky Bex is here. Hello, Bex.
Hello to you, Easy.
Yep.
You look like you're in Ghana, man.
Yeah.
So today, well, I'm not sure Central Region.
There's no Central Region.
Yeah. But today we take you to Central Region.
Yeah. Where they have, before you go, you would have to say a few things about that.
No, when
there's
we come.
Etil.
When we come back.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
I read ya. Yeah. What's up? What's up? What's up? Flow. Yeah. What's up? Yo, come with it, chill with it, mess up. Nah. Guess in the trust the vibe up. I'm a number well a
We have two flows of the river. That is River Emisa. It has a source from Asimpra. Emisa, yes, locally called Ochi. And this is called the Slave River itself. This is where the captives were being made to take their bath.
Today, we're in the Central Region. Let's start our journey at the Kakum National Park. This park has a series of hanging bridges at the forest canopy level, known as the Canopy Walkway. Good for Instagram pictures, if you ask me. Fancy a history lesson? Well, let's head to the Cape Coast Castle. You'll have the opportunity to see a beautiful view of the ocean, go down the lower level dungeons and upper level room.
In Ghana, there are 3 castles dotted along the coast. We have St. George's Castle, we also have the Christianborg Castle, and then finally we have Cape Coast Castle, built by the British in 1665.
And also see the door of no return. The Central Region is also known for its many elite senior high schools like Adisadal College, Mfantsiman Girls Secondary School, Mfantsi Pim School, Wesley Girls High School, and St. Augustine's College. Movie stars Yvonne Nelson, Jackie Appiah, Van Vika, and Lydia Forson all hail from the Central Region.
So rapper T-Flow also hails from the Central Region, and I know that some of their favorite food is etil. That you just mentioned.
Not my favorite food, but it's one of the popular dishes that comes from there.
And Fanti. And they have a dance called Apatama dance.
The first time I had Fanti actually was Ketsi Araba Kumsing, who comes from the Central Region.
Central Region.
Yes.
It's a Central Foye, Yenya Hua, Yebeba, Ababe Di Eto.
Hey, about some Nerking.
You know, the Fanti is similar to the one from Takrady. Is it the same?
Yeah.
Like it's different.
Yeah.
Well, we'll try and figure out.
Before anybody accuses us, let's stop speaking the Fanti.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Becky Bex, for bringing us Showbiz.
Anytime.
We're taking a break and we're bringing you sports. To stay tuned in.
Welcome to the sports segment with me, Oreku Wampofo, and let's start off with a story that has been making rounds today, and that has to do with the Diana Stars defender Farouk Adams. Now, he went before court earlier today after allegedly hitting a police officer, Constable Amos Mate, of the Wamfi police station, and after he absconded, leaving the whole situation, making it very difficult, actually. But then there's been reports that claim that the player was en route from Sunyani to Doma when the accident did happen.
The player, who won the NASCO Man of the Match award in week 16 of the Ghana Premier League match between Aduana Stars and Inter Allies at Doma, was driving from Sunyani back to Doma when the accident happened. According to sources, the player alleges he knocked down a suspected animal that crossed the car, upon which he stopped but found nothing. The source said he alleges he later parked the car at a nearby fuel station where he called the car owner about the accident and proceeded to the Wamfie Polyclinic to attend to an injury he sustained. He later went back to the accident scene with the car owner but again found nothing. He then left for Doma in a different vehicle while a mechanic moved the other car to Sunyani on the orders of the actual owner, the source said. Farouk Adams alleged it was his friend who later told him the accident had caused the death of one person. He then reported it to the Doma police station around 1:30 p.m. on Tuesday and was subsequently arrested by the Wamfie police. A police source said they had information of an accident victim only to find a lifeless body of Constable Mate by the road at the scene. The body has been deposited at the Presby Hospital at Doma while investigations continue.
Let's now head to Doma and get more from that story and updates as to what happened exactly and transpired in court. And joining us via Zoom is our correspondent, Precious Semevo. It's a pleasure to have you, Precious. First off, can you take us through what the day has been like in terms of the story? We know that he went to court. What came out of that? We know that. We also know that it's been 2 counts that he's been charged with. If you could also explain what that means for the player as well.
Yeah, so the player originally was supposed to have appeared at the Wamfie Magistrate Court, but that did not happen. As later in the day, late morning, we heard that they were transferring him to the Sunyani High Court, but that did not happen because when they arrived in Sunyani, straight they moved to the Bono Regional Police Headquarters. That is where they went to. Now, they spent quite a time there. Apparently, the police were preparing the charge sheet that they were to take to the court. So eventually, when they were done, they preferred 2 charges against him. And the 2 charges, one is careless and inconsiderate driving. That is the first count. And the second one is negligently causing harm. These were the 2 charges that the court, the police preferred against him. Ostensibly to for the court to grant them their request of a remand so that they can have him in lawful custody pending investigation. We moved from the police headquarters to the court itself, which happens to be in Fiapre, in the Sunyani East municipality. Now, unfortunately, when we got there, the court had closed, so they just rearranged their schedule and said that they will have to come back the following day that for the sitting to take place. So the police had to take him back to the regional police headquarters. So as it stands now, we are waiting, God willing, tomorrow for him to reappear at the Fiapre court in Sunyani.
So the player is going to spend another night behind bars?
Yes, so this time around, not at the Wamfie police station, but this time at the Bono Regional Police Headquarters in Sunyani.
What's the state of mind, for the player? Have you gotten close to him, and how does his body language come across?
Well, Reku, the body language of Farouk Adams is that of sadness, that of complete emptiness. He's lost. I'm sure the reality is now hitting him and realizing the situation that he finds himself in. I personally know Farouk Adams, and I know how lively and bubbly that he is. But the Farouk that I saw this afternoon is a completely different one, and it confirms the fact that he's not in a comfortable situation. It's such a tragic and sad situation that he finds himself in.
And what about the family of the deceased, Constable Amos Mate? Have you heard anything from the family?
No, we've not heard anything officially from the family. But what I know is that the club, Aduana Stars Football Club, the management members, some technical team members, and some few fans, followed the player to Sunyani, to the regional police headquarters, as well as to the Fiapre Divisional Circuit Courts. So that is the kind of support that he's been enjoying. There were some few people also following, but it is not clear where they belong to, whether they are family relatives of the player Farouk Adams or relatives of the late Constable Amos Mate.
Okay, thank you very much, Precious Semevo, for providing us details as to the latest with the Farouk Adams case, the Aduana Stars defender who hit a police officer and then the officer died on the spot. Well, he's arranged for court again tomorrow, and we're bringing you updates on that case as well. My name is Oreo Kwampofo, and if you're watching the news on Joy Prime, this is how we wrap it up here. But we'll be back to continue on JoyNews right after this.
Now to the rest of our story. The Auditor General Daniel Domilovo has resumed work after nearly 170 days of leave forced by a directive from President Akufo-Addo last year. This is despite a statement from the Audit Service Board saying personal records with the state show he has reached the retirement age last year. In a series of correspondence between the Audit Service Board and the Auditor General, the board cited what it says are discrepancies in his official date of birth and nationality. Manuel Kranting was at Mr. Domilovo's office Wednesday and filed this report.
So we've been here up around 7 a.m. monitoring whether or not he was going to show up. Indeed, earlier, everybody at the office, even up until now, has been tight-lipped. Nobody was saying anything until we got a glimpse of his arrival. He used a different entrance into the yard of the audit service, where he was ushered into his office. And it's instructive to note that at this point, there was a sharp contrast in how he was received today against what happened the other time when he arrived at the office and the keys had been changed. In fact, today he was giving a smooth access to his office. I also went upstairs and monitored that some technicians had come to his office and were fixing the telephone lines. I gathered that there were some issues with the telephone lines in his office. That issue has been fixed this morning, giving you an indication of the sort of reception that he's received since he arrived at the office. We've been trying to get some comments from him essentially on whether or not he's gathered the correspondence from the board on wanting him to stay away from the office because of the issues around his nationality and then of course his age. He's declined to comment, but he spoke to us briefly and thanked Ghanaians for their concern for him and checking on him even as he reported to work this morning.
I will not make any public statement. I will not also comment on any issues, but it will be a disrespect to you people to just look at you and ignore you. So once again, thank you very much for showing concern and for coming. Thank you.
Another issue that waits to be seen is what will become of the legal repercussions and implications of his arrival on the premises of the office. Indeed, the board had said, in fact, challenged his nationality and in some instances referred to him based on records from his official documents as being Togolese and also referring to his date of birth as 1st June 1960. Something which Daniel Domilovo in his correspondence to the board said was corrected in 1993 to 1st June 1961. And so if indeed he was born on 1st June 1960 and the audit board's position holds, then based on the audit board's correspondence to him, will be occupying the office this morning illegally. But we do not have details on what the implications of his arrival are yet, and that is what we are monitoring from here at the audit service premises.
Well, anti-graft campaigner Vitus Azim also wants President Akufo-Addo to intervene in the impasse and find an amicable way out. He spoke with Mama Usuabaji on the AM show.
I think we should hear something from the president. It will be like we are just giving now. Although I think that maybe personally, if you ask for my personal, now just look at your records. If you cannot justify them, maybe you just forget about it. But if he has the records that show that, he has done the right thing, I think as a principle, he should wait until the time comes or until an appropriate authority asks him to go.
What can he realistically do in 3 months? What new discoveries can Daniel Domalovo bring out as Auditor General in 3 months?
So there were certain issues that he was already pursuing. The senior minister case, for example, I don't know whether he can go back for it. There are other issues that he was pursuing. So he can at least bring those to conclusion.
Let's go to Parliament now, where 2 of the 3 ministerial nominees who the minority MPs on Parliament's appointment committee refused to approve are said to have submitted documents challenging the basis for the MPs' move against them. Minister-designate for Information Kojo Nkrumah was rejected by the minority MPs because it said he was evasive and untruthful with his answers during the vetting. In the case of a Greek minister-designate, Dr. Usuefri Akoto, the members cited his involvement in the cancellation of a horticulture contract, which the minority says led to a $50 million judgment debt for the country. But Majority Leader Oseche Mensah-Bonsu says the document submitted by Kojo Nkrumah purged him of all the said allegations. He's been speaking with Parliamentary correspondent Kwesi Parker-Wilson.
The question is, you are to assist the president in running the state efficiently. Could that involve issues of trust? Right. So I do know that in the matter relating to Opon Nkrumah, honorable member of Fuansia Yeribi, he's brought the relevant documents to prove that he didn't perjure himself. So we want to go through and then see the position. I think the same thing goes for the minister designated for agriculture. We want to look at that, and then
the contract which nearly caused the state about 50 million.
Want to look at that. Want to look at that. He submitted some documentation, and I'm looking at it. So far, in my considered opinion, if the documents is submitted to me are the relevant documents, then I get the impression that he rather sought to right what is wrong, to really have the way smoothened for our farmers and exporters. So unless there's something contrary to that I don't know, on account of the documents that he submitted to me, I think rather he should be commended and not be bastardized.
Now let's move away from.
On how Akum Singh, the majority leader, argued that the minority cannot block her approval since she hasn't been indicted by the police over her alleged involvement in the shooting in her constituency.
Because committee chairmen don't have that authority to give rulings. Other than that, what is happening before the appointment committee, the current chairman will say that, well, you are saying this, I've ruled against you. But that was the behavior of Dua Jahu, and I said he was wrong. And that was when I said to him that he was being whimsical and capricious, because there was no basis for that. But then his own position was that to the extent that he had not been convicted by the courts, we couldn't hold it against him. That Parliament should approve of him if after the event the ruling went against him, and then the president could withdraw him.
Right, let's go over now to Parliament, the floor of Parliament, where there's a debate underway, and let's sing it.
The ayes have it. The motion is carried. We now proceed to item 7. Motion that this Honorable House adopts the second report of the Appointment Committee Honorable members, what I have as item 7 is what I am reading. And so if there is an error, then I am not talking about what is on your order paper. I'm talking about what is on the order paper before me. And so if it is in error, I've just told the table office, they said yes, it's in error, it's first report. But what is on my paper is second report. So I go over it, that this Honorable House adopt the first report of the Appointment Committee on the present nominations for ministerial appointments. Chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker, I rise to move that this House adopts the first report of the Appointments Committee on the President's nominees for ministerial appointments. In so doing, Mr. Speaker, I present the committee's report. The Speaker, I'll just refer to the headlines and I'll ask them to capture the title. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Article 78(1) and 256 of the Constitution of Ghana, His Excellency the President, on 22nd January, presented to the House a list of persons to be considered by the House for appointments to various positions. The Speaker graciously referred the matter to the Appointments Committee to consider and report. The Speaker, the report is contained in the report laid yesterday and it covers 144 pages. The Speaker, the committee went through the motions, had so presented, advertised in the newspapers of national circulation, and invited members for memoranda on the nominees. The Speaker, the committee have considered the nomination of Mr. Albert Kandapa, the National Security, Honorable Dominic Nitiwu as Defense Minister, Honorable Shelley Ayoko Botwi, Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, Honorable Dr. Yao Osei for Education, Honorable Osei Chairman Sabonsu for Parliamentary Affairs, Honorable Dr. Matthew Poku Prempe for Energy, Honorable Daniel Botwi, Local Government Decentralization and Rural Development, Honorable Ambrose Derry for Interior, Honorable Ignatius Bafuwa, Employment, Labor Relations, Honorable Sarah Adjua-Safo, Gender, Children and Social Protection, Honorable Dr. Osefri Akoto, Food and Agriculture, Honorable Mavis Howard Kumson, Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, Honorable Kwejo Opon Kroma for Information. Mr. Speaker, after due consideration, taking cognizance of the provisions of the 1992 Constitution, the standing orders of the committee, and the CV of the nominees, members ask questions ranging from anything relating to their qualification. Members considered whether they had anything in their CV that disqualifies them or any other information that would make them unqualified to be ministers of state. And after due consideration, the first 10 were recommended to the House to be adopted, recommended to the House to be adopted by consensus, where the last 3 are recommended to be adopted by the House by majority. Mr. Speaker, for the avoidance of doubt, the Honorable Kandapa, Minister for National Security, Honorable Initiwu Dominic, Minister for Defense, Honorable Shelayo Kobuchi for Foreign Affairs, Honorable Dr. Osei Yao Osei Aduchulu for Education, Honorable Osei Chairman Sabonsu for Parliamentary Affairs, Honorable Dr. Poku Prempe for Energy, Honorable Daniel Bochi for Local Government Decentralization, Honorable Ambrose Derry for Interior, Honorable Ignatius Bafoua, Employment, Labor Relations, Honorable Sarah Adjoasa for Gender, Children and Social Protection, whereby consensus recommended to the House for approval. On the other hand, Honorable Dr. Joseph Riakoto, Honorable Mavis Hawakumsen, and Honorable Kojo Ponkroma were recommended by me for the House to the House for consideration. Mr. Speaker, I present the report for the House. I thank you.
All right, so that's live proceedings from the floor of Parliament. We're going over to correspondent Kwesi Parker-Wilson to bring us up to speed on exactly what's been happening, because we're learning that the House is to adopt the first report of the Appointments Committee. And as you heard, let's just go back to the Speaker.
Honorable members, we have 10 of them recommended by consensus.
Right, so what's actually happening right now in Parliament? Kwesi Parker-Wilson joins me on the phone line now to explain to us. Hello, Parker. So we're learning that the House, the first report of the Appointments Committee has been presented. You tell us.
So after the head count, it emerged that the minority won by 137 votes, while the minority obtained 125 votes. So it was clear that the majority had won the head count and that the Speaker endorsed their position to debate the report from the Appointment Committee tonight. So they have started. In fact, just a while ago, the Speaker was asking the members of the House, the leadership, the minority leader and the majority leader, on how many of their members should he permit to debate on the report. So they are now deciding how many of them should be allowed to debate on the report. So as it stands, Parliament is now officially debating the first report of the Appointment Committee, which contains 13 nominees. And we understand that 10 of them were by consensus, whilst the other 3, Kojo Ponkroma, Joseph Riakoto, and Mavis Hawakumsen, were by majority decision. And we do understand that the majority decision is largely based on the majority MP on the Appointment Committee from the NPP, and not a collective decision by the members of the committee who decided to vote in favor of the nominees.
All right, so we're returning to proceed. Let's listen in. The Speaker of Parliament is on the floor at the moment.
Honorable Dominic. Yes, a minute, yes.
You asked for an indication from us
leadership about the number of contributors. And I indicated that the motion shall have to be seconded first, which is what I did earlier. So now we should give you the indication of the numbers for contribution. Mr. Speaker, I was having some... Honorable Majority Leader, I will come to that. I will come to that. He was on his feet. So I wanted to hear from him why he was on his feet. It's not that he started the debate. I just want to hear why he was on his feet. Yes, Honorable Dominica Yume.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I'm rising on the basis of a preliminary issue relating to Order 171 of the Standing Orders of Parliament. And in particular, Mr. Speaker, I am relying on Order 171, Sub-Order 4. No, sorry. Mr. Speaker, I made a wrong reference. It's 172 of the Standing Orders. And Sub-Order 4, Mr. Speaker. Sub-Order 4 is to the effect that the committee shall report to Parliament within 3 days after it has concluded its proceedings when Parliament is sitting. Parliamentary approval of persons recommended for appointment shall be by secret ballot or by consensus. Mr. Speaker, your chairman's report says that the committee has recommended the adoption of the retained ministers by consensus, and in respect of the 3 of them by secret ballot or majority, that is majority voting. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the aisle, the question of consensus is now off the table. It is off the table. It is off the table because from the inception of this process, from the inception of this process, there has been no consensus or cooperation in respect of the preliminary decision that we had to take. And as a result of that, this side of the aisle does not accept the consensus-based approval of the 10 ministers. In that respect, Mr. Speaker, once there is disagreement, by necessary implication, there is no consensus. And therefore, in the circumstances in which we find ourselves, I am proposing that we vote on each of the nominees stated in the
Honorable Member, Honorable Dominic Ayine, are you a member of the Appointments Committee? Mr. Speaker, I am not a member of the Appointments Committee. But Mr. Speaker, once the member, please, we are going by procedure. When it gets to that issue you are raising, it will be clear, and it is the House that will take the decision. Yes. But you don't get up on the floor where a committee has deliberated on something and taking a decision at the committee level without any debate. An individual member gets up to say there was no consensus because this side of the House. That definitely is at the end of the debate. When the issues are raised and the House is given the opportunity to take the decision, then the House can disagree with the position taken by the committee. And so your submission has been misconceived. And please, let's proceed. Let me know how many will be making submissions on his side of the House. Please, Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker,
First of all, I wrote, but I couldn't catch your eye. And subsequently, I saw the majority leader in his rush to second the motion, even whilst I was whispering with him that we should do 5+1 because there's 10 nominees. So half of it, we have 5 members thoroughly debated. The leadership, indeed, it was my wish even to rise and second it, then make my comment, then yield the floor to other members so that I have no right to come back to it. Because, Mr. Speaker, the work that the chairman of the Appointments Committee have presented is our collective work, it's our common work. It's just to put you on notice that today we have people, so we have voted even on whether to proceed on a motion or not. Good precedent for the beginning, best practice for tomorrow, will hold people to it. So, Mr. Speaker, if you permitted me, I now can have an opportunity to contribute to the motion. Then 5+1, 6.
5 on each side of the divide.
5.
Yes, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, I think it's important to state that after the motion had been moved, there was no rush on my part. There was no rush. The minority leader was to second the motion. He rose up and then indicated that he was yielding to another person. And I was indicating to him that because the motion had been moved, it must be seconded first. Mr. Speaker, that is why I said in the second instance I was seconding the motion. There was no rush on my part. But Mr. Speaker, I was communicating with him on the number. I indicated to him that we could have 3 plus 1 in leadership to make 4. Mr. Speaker, I think that given where we are now, it's a reasonable number to deal with. So, Mr. Speaker, I am to the minority leader that we deal with 3 plus leadership to make 4.
Honorable members, we are taking our time to go through laborious process because the decision we are about to take is a very important decision. And we are doing our best to follow the best practices in the world. At the end of the day, we are setting precedents that we will have to follow tomorrow. And so I will support that 5 on each side of the house. If it means we'll sit here till 2 a.m., Mr. Speaker is prepared to preside till that time. But we have to take the decision. And so, Minority Leader, if you want to set the ball rolling, please, you may do so now.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to speak to the motion ably presented by the chairman of the Appointments Committee that this House recommends by consensus and where necessary by majority decision the present nominees as captured in part 4 of our report. And Mr. Speaker, in doing so, may I just refer to 3 nominees to set the tone. The Honorable Albert Kandapa, Minister National Security, the Honorable Dominic Netuwo, Minister for Defense, and the Honorable Ambrose Derry. I conceive of these ministers as ministers holding portfolios that has to do with public safety
and public security. But Mr. Speaker, as captured in the report, and I refer you to page 7 of the report, and further to page 9. I'll read the headings for our purposes. Mr. Speaker, these three ministers, they owe people some duty. Which duty is that in the run-up to the December 7th election, we lost a number of Ghanaian citizens in Techima, in Kasua, in Savulgo, in Ablekuma. These ministers failed to act diligently to get these matters investigated and the perpetrators dealt with in accordance with law. Yet, they are before us for approval that we should put the responsibility of the security of the state and the security of Ghanaian citizens on their hand. So, Mr. Speaker, now page 16 of the report, paragraph Q. The nominee admitted to packets of election-related violence in various parts of the country during the just-ended general elections. Particular mention was made of incidents in Ododo Diodio, Techima South, Ablekuma Central, and others. Mr. Speaker, 7 persons lost their lives. We are demanding that investigation be done into the circumstances leading to those loss of life. Those are Ghanaian citizens, and when necessary, adequate compensation be paid to their families, because they are citizens who lost their life because of excessive conduct of the military, excessive conduct of the police against the letter and spirit of the law and what their mandate requires them to do. They failed us. And I hope as they go to the ministry, we will not see another failure. Another failure, that there will be another election where the military and police are unleashed on Ghanaian citizens, leading to loss of life. The cost of a ballot paper should not result in loss of life. We know that your determination was to turn our majority into your majority undeservedly, using the excessive force of the military. In many of those things you lost, and you were not ready to concede defeat and got them. Mr. Speaker, another matter that the 3 ministers, I want to hold them responsible and accountable to the Ghanaian people, is the sacrilege which happened on the floor of Parliament with military invasion of this house. And we are told against by various, led by Minister Kandapa, and Mr. Speaker, is captured in the committee's report when he stated that it was a commander who issued that order. Commander. Who is the commander-in-chief? At the time, who was the commander-in-chief? Who was that commander? Mr. Speaker, so the three ministers for national security, defense and interior again failed us woefully when they had to invite the military to this chamber. It's never happened. It was more or less a coup d'etat on our democracy on the floor of Parliament. We do not find that acceptable, and we need assurances from them that this will never happen and happen in our democracy, where the parliamentary chamber is reduced to gallivanting soldiers excited invading Parliament. When has this happened before? And yet nobody is being punished for that. Mr. Speaker, the minister, when he met us, as I've said, I intend to deal with some aspects of it in order that I can comment on it. So to the 3 ministers that are being proposed for national security, defense and interior, we are demanding answers to those lives that were lost on December 7. We are demanding an explanation as to what transpired on the floor of Parliament, the sacrilege which has become a blot on the conscience of Ghana's democracy under their watch. Mr. Speaker, the matter of an Accra intelligence traffic monitoring system was broken. Interestingly, he and the Minister for Roads, who appeared subsequently, were speaking parallel. One said no work done, one says the matter is before arbitration. We will hold them responsible in the event of any judgment debt to the Republic because of their inability to allow for harmony and for thorough, diligent work in assessing this. There's a difference between traffic lights and traffic congestion management, and we should take note of that even as we go on. Interesting times, Mr. Speaker. Now that COVID numbers have increased, we are not seeing heavy military presence in the Volta region. But those days, just close to voter registration exercise, they found good excuse and said because of COVID. Saying the soldiers there, why are they not there? They must learn to treat Ghanaians with respect and with honor. When we are deploying them, the essence was to frustrate the NDC in a stronghold. It is not for nothing that in a democracy, elections must be free and fair. Free from fear and free from intimidation. So when you say elections are free and fair, you cannot say that the compilation of the voter register, when you chose to intimidate, this political opposition in this stronghold provides a basis for the conduct of free and fair elections. We took objection to it, Mr. Speaker, but nonetheless, Mr. Speaker, we are assured by the minister that he will deal with some matters relating to terrorism and other matters. Mr. Speaker, to the Honorable Dominic Nitiwo, apart from those disappointments, is in Ghana today. I grew up with him because he knows Sir Charles. He knows Duanai very well. It used not to be the case to see the military around and on the street every day, now gun wielding in uniform, taking over the civilian function of the Ghana Police Service. If it's a mark of lack of confidence on the Ghana Police Service, let us know. If you have reduced the police service and reduced army officers to the holding premises somewhere, let us know. You are not dignifying the respected Ghana Armed Forces with the openness with which you have exposed them to the Ghanaian civilian system, as if to maintain civil order is now the primary responsibility of the armed forces. As I know it, and as I see it from the Constitution, obligation is territorial integrity. They can collaborate where the incidence of crime is high for purposes of our safety and others. He promised that he's doing some work on accommodation for soldiers. I'm all in with it for him. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, I even further suggested that the popular Sagrami housing project be completed. I hear some $181 million was invested in it. The Honorable Atachia will know better, or the Honorable Collins Dada. I share the view that government takes appropriate steps to complete the project and hand it over to the Ghana Armed Forces because they are in want of accommodation. And Mr. Speaker, we must respect Ghanaian citizens. You take taxpayers' money, $181 million. It is outstanding all these years to get it completed. Yet the armed forces and the police service are without houses. All the Minister for Works and Housing probably needed was for government to finance the uncompleted aspect of the project and bring it to finality. That was not done. It was about, we are not satisfied with it. Mr. Speaker, we are sure. Honorable Ambrose Derry, Mr. Speaker, the day the sacrilege happened, we saw some senior police officer here who also entered the chamber from far end. I'm wondering why he should not even be brought to Privileges Committee to explain the service. He was here. The other day, we were somewhere, he was insisting that we are in breach of law. He too is in breach of parliamentary privilege and must give us reason why he should not be held for those purposes. Mr. Speaker, it was the Honorable Ayokoboche, Foreign Minister. She's doing her best, but our foreign service officials, they had this opportunity in the past where
some duty vehicles. They brought one of it for purpose of their family when they were coming back. And I believe that it was subsequently cancelled. It has to be renewed. To Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, Minister for Energy. Mr. Speaker, fortunately, he's a member of the Appointments Committee. So PDS, we saw a minister nominee take pride in the fact that I abrogated a fraudulent transaction. How he could have said that I failed in my diligence, resulting in fraud, resulting in termination, and I take responsibility for judgment if there is any. But Mr. Speaker, we are demanding. Some monies were paid to PDS. As we speak today, nobody knows the amount of money PDS took in the name of that concession agreement for and behalf of the people of Ghana. That cannot be right. So PDS, whatever money they take, ministers were investing to report to us what the quantum of collection have been. They can't even use projections of ECG without PDS to tell us that this estimated amount is available. Where is the PDS money? We demand it. We demand it. How much of it? How much interest have accrued on it? We know that there will be judgment debt on PDS. The country has lost some $190 million from the United States Millennium Challenge Corporation as part of the concession. But what is important, Mr. Speaker, we have lost a unique opportunity to analyze ECG to allow for more efficiency in their operations. Yet, every day, there are losses. My brother and friend, the Honorable Nafo, you have a responsibility, rural electric. Your government have performed abysmally poor from 82% only to 84% over the 4 years of President Nana Dankwa. Do well to expand electricity to more rural areas and do well to assure the people of Ghana the best access coverage to that. Mr. Speaker, our oil blocks must be done competitively and auctioned competitively to give us value for money. Mr. Speaker, I will still indulge you as I take to particularly the Upper East region. But Mr. Speaker, when you are Minister for Education, that's something called double track, green left right. It has resulted in some teenage pregnancies. He prides himself, sometimes with the president, of his flagship of Free Senior High School. Free Senior High School, not investment in literacy and numeracy, it must be investment in human capital. Sustaining it financially, posterity will be a better get. Mr. Speaker, as you indulge me, Honorable Dambu, very experienced politician from his Nooks days, now taking over the Ministry of Government, Decentralization and Rural Development. Our first expectation of him is for government to respect the Supreme Court ruling in the matter of Kodo, Ayeni and Richard Kashiga, where the Supreme Court took a monumental decision on what should constitute national revenue and its consequential distribution to affect regional coordinating councils, district coordinating councils, and in particular, the District Assembly Common Fund established under Article 252 of the Mr. Speaker. There are districts sometimes even fuel for police to control a particular crime situation or convey accident victim becomes a problem. Of assembly members, they didn't believe it. When President Mahama promised it, he was chastised, but he had to respond to it. And Mr. Speaker, this is what he had to say. As to whether assembly members should be paid monthly, the nominee indicated that the assembly members do not work full-time at the assembly, and many of them are already workers paid by the government. He noted that he will support an initiative that will support assemblymen. How he does it, how it will be different from the NDC proposition, we will look into it. Mr. Speaker, he also looked at the Central Kofi Akpafu Lolobi Lipe matter. And Mr. Speaker, this is an important matter we should, as a House, look at. All of a sudden, 6th December, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission issues a letter telling a particular population of the country that take part only in presidential election and not in parliamentary election. Mindful of the fact that the matter is before court, and I respect matters in relation to Order 93 of our standing orders, I will not go further. But whether it was done for the political convenience of our time, time will tell. But what time cannot change is that some Ghanaians were denied the right to have representation in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, amending, and again, is for those ministers of security. The new patriotic party government can be very interesting. Act 766 was passed in 2008. In the run-up to the election, police officers and fire officers were deceived that there were salary increases. When the Minister for Interior appeared before our House, he said, oh, it was 1 month, one-off allowance, not salary. Whether you deceive the police officers or not, they have their pay slips. They have their pay slips and fire service. And whether you have kept faith with them or you are doing it for the political convenience of December, time will tell. I mean, they were smart in talking about Cap 30. Cap 30 within Act 766. Where are we? Where are we? And the Honourable Minister for Education, you are managing pension. Recipe for confusion. What you need is a pension unification scheme for all the security agencies, not to run undercover for Cap 30 because it was politically convenient to declaring so. So probably we will see how they proceed on it. Mr. Speaker, I should be concluding. Dr. Edichum going to Ministry of Education will measure you with Free Senior High School. Is that there was some outstanding matter, and Mr. Speaker, later on we will delve into it about acquisition of mass sets. We didn't find the answers to it very satisfactory. Ignatius Bakwa Iwa, he knows that the serene industrial harmony and peace is enjoying. The foundations were laid by the NDC. He knows. Even I referred to you to a World Bank report in 2015. Codified conditions of service. Minister for Health wanted to take credit. But we have progressed, Mr. Speaker. They have continued with it. He is very, very dutiful with his job. Maternity leave for women. Maternity leave for working mothers. You have to ratify and domesticate the ILO Convention on Maternity in order that nursing mothers can be happier with you, and then lift the ban on those matters relating to exportation of labor to other countries by registered companies. Now, Speaker, it was critical of us when we got to Honorable Ajwa Sapo, and some even wrote that every nominee must spend equal number of time. I say to the public that every portfolio counts with its weight of institutions, and every portfolio counts with the weight of the person going to that ministry. She gave me an assurance that she stands against LGBT something. It was heartwarming because at least I know where she stands. There are those who still fumble and those who struggle as if they were not Ghanaians. Mr. Speaker, let me now conclude. Honorable Hawa Kumsa, and I just make a comment. To shoot is not ministerial. To shoot is not honorable. She was human when she apologized to our committee, but went further to say that the police were investigating the matter. The investigation is inconclusive, whether she has been charged or not. She says she's not been charged. So to the Minister for Interior to be, how serious is our police service? You find a member of parliament shooting, and then it takes time. charge statement, caution statement not available. So, Mr. Speaker, this is what I have to say. But to say that we have a duty to support government, to constitute government in accordance with law. I have perused the Constitution. I have perused Article 94 of the Constitution. I've seen members relate to other situations. The individuals involved are not the same. The matters are not the same. We will subject nominees, as we do per our chairman, to the litmus test of the Constitution and whether there is any proven criminal record in a matter of moral turpitude. Mr. Speaker, with these words, I support the motion. I thank you.
Honorable members, the minority leader has used 21 minutes. The same will be extended to the majority leader. The rest of the members will be given 10 minutes each. We have listened to the majority leader. The list I have authority side, the person to lead and have the first bite is Honorable Atachia. So, Honorable Member, you may make your submissions.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Member, just a minute.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, out of respect for your ruling and directive to the Appointments Committee, when they sat as a committee, advised that they should not sit, just 30 people in the chamber, should not sit for more than 2 hours without a break, due to the exigencies of the time, COVID-19. At this point in time, we've been sitting in the chamber for 2 hours, 25 minutes, without a break, as a full house. And so I just want to draw the Speaker's attention to his direction on COVID-19 and the protocols. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member, I thank you so much for the reminder. I will also observe that many of you have not been on your seats for more than 2 hours. But some members, yes, because I've been very observant. I know some members have been on their seats for more than even 3 hours, but not the majority. I have been glued here, and so I myself is affected, and I will be taking some few minutes to take fresh air and then allow my second deputy speaker to take over the chair. But let's listen to Honorable Atachia.
Thank you,
Honorable second deputy speaker to take the chair.
Thank you, Right Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to motion number 7 on today's order paper. To wait that this Honorable House adopts the first report of the Appointment Committee on the President's nominations for ministerial appointment. Right Honorable Speaker, there has been a lot of conversation about the collaboration between the executive and Parliament, and even more so when it is being said that we have a tie. But when you pay due regard to the Constitution, that collaboration has been spelled out already. And I want to refer the House to Article 78(1) of the Constitution. With the kind permission of Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, I would like to quote: Ministers of State shall be appointed by the President with the power approval of Parliament from among members of Parliament or persons qualified to be elected as members of Parliament, except that the majority of members of state shall be appointed from among members of Parliament. So clearly, Mr. Speaker, the President appoints with approval. That's collaboration. You can see the two arms of government working together to constitute, the government. And it is very, very important. We are not at each other's throat. We are not at loggerheads. It is very important that this constitutional assignment, we should understand it, that the President will appoint, secures a prior approval, and then the ministers who assist him in policy will be in place. Right now, Mr. Speaker, I have always been wondering what is the Foundational Appointment Committee. I have always been wondering that if you are not careful, we overlook the foundational assignment of the Appointment Committee and delve into issues which may be sentimental or even, if you like, a fight. But what is very important for the consideration of the Appointment Committee, with the greatest of respect, and with due deference to that very important committee, is what's been spelled out in Article 94. I call it, they should interrogate the technical knockout position in which somebody is disqualified from becoming a minister. Because the standard of the minister is the same as a member of Parliament, and therefore Article 70 becomes very important. So therefore, there should be a proper interrogation even about the age. And when you look at the report here, these are not the issues. Tax liabilities. Does he owe any other government? Has he been charged otherwise or declared bankrupt under any law? Is an individual of unsound mind. And mercifully, if you look at the entire report, there's nobody who is.
So you're watching debates, or Parliament debates, the first report of the Appointments Committee on the ministerial nominees. President Akufo-Addo's ministerial nominees. We're ending JoyNews Prime at this point to bring you PM Express with Aisha Ibrahim, but we will be monitoring or keeping an eye on developments going on in the chamber, and we will update you as and when. My name is Suzulan. Thank you very much for watching JoyNews Prime. You have a good evening.